I'm recently married.
Yes.
My husband is off conducting business.
Mandy, nobody cares.
Why would a hit show risk everything to replace a character everyone loves? The answer is never simple. It could be a secret illness, a backstage fight, or an actor who just decided to walk away. We're counting down 25 of these unbelievable stories, including the tale of one actor who had to quit because of a painful injury he hid for years. 1. Carol Willick on Friends.
Mushroom. Smile. They won't all be like this. Some women might even stay through dinner.
Everyone who watched Friends remembers Carol. She was Ross Geller's first wife, who later realized she was in love with a woman and left him for her new partner, Susan. Carol was a really important part of Ross's story, especially in the early seasons. She was the mother of his son, Ben, and their modern family dynamic led to some of the show's funniest and most heartfelt moments. The Carol we all know and love was played by the amazing actress Jane Sibb Bett. She had this warm and friendly vibe that made her perfect for the part. But here's the kicker. She wasn't the first Carol. Believe it or not, the very first time we ever saw Carol on screen, in the second episode ever, she was played by a totally different actress named Anita Barone. She looked quite different from Jane Sibb Bett, and it's a real shock when you go back and rewatch that early episode. The producers originally wanted a bigger role for Carol, but when Anita Barone decided she wanted to pursue a more full-time acting gig elsewhere, she quit. The role was then recast, and Jane Sibb Bett made it her own for the rest of the show's 10-year run. Most of us just blended the two in our memory. It's pretty wild to think a show as huge as Friends had a switch-up like that so early on. But replacing a recurring guest star is one thing. What about a show that replaced the main character's dad, not once but twice, before finding the perfect fit? 2. Morty Seinfeld on Seinfeld.
They'll be here first thing Thursday morning.
Thursday morning? You know we're leaving at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, you're leaving at 3 o'clock.
Let's talk about one of the greatest sitcoms of all time, Seinfeld. A show about nothing. Jerry Seinfeld's parents, Morty and Helen, were some of the most hilarious side characters on television. Whenever they came to visit from Florida, you knew it was going to be a classic episode. Morty Seinfeld, the dad, was famous for his obsession with his wallet and his job selling raincoats. The actor who made that role a legend was Barney Martin. He was perfect. But he wasn't the first Morty. In Morty's very first appearance in Season 1, he was played by an actor named Phil Bruns. And truth be told, he played the character very differently. This first Morty was a little quieter and less over the top. The show's creator, Larry David, felt that the performance just wasn't quite right. He wanted someone with a bit more of a grumpy, explosive energy. So, when it was time for Morty to come back in Season 2, they made a change. They hired Barney Martin, who brought that perfect cranky attitude that we all remember. The switch was so early in the show's run that most people never even noticed. But what about that other dad on Seinfeld, George Costanza's father? Believe it or not, he was replaced too, creating one of the most iconic sitcom dads ever. 3. Frank Costanza on Seinfeld.
Incheon, Korea, 1950. I was the best cook Uncle Sam ever saw.
Staying with Seinfeld, let's talk about the Costanza family. George's parents, Frank and Estelle, were a screaming, neurotic, and absolutely hysterical pair. Frank Costanza, played by the legendary Jerry Stiller, is famous for creating his own holiday, Festivus, and for screaming, "Serenity now!" He was a comedy powerhouse. But would you believe that the loud, angry Frank we all know and love wasn't the original? It's true. The character first appeared in a Season 4 episode, and he was played by a different actor named John Randolph. This version of Frank was much more low-key. He was just a regular, slightly grumpy old man. After the episode was filmed, Larry David once again felt that something was missing. The character needed more punch. He wanted Frank to be just as loud and crazy as his wife, Estelle, so he made the bold decision to recast the role. He hired Jerry Stiller, who came in and completely reinvented the character. He turned Frank into the unforgettable ball of rage that became a fan favorite. The performance was so iconic that they even went back and reshot the scenes from John Randolph's episode with Jerry Stiller for when the show was sold into reruns. That way, the character would be consistent. Replacing one famous dad is a big deal. But our next show made a change that has become a Hollywood legend, involving a character who was at the very center of the magical story. 4. Darren Stevens on Bewitched.
Got your laugh. Now run along and let me go back to work.
Larry, we're not kidding. My wife is a witch.
Aaron, if you want a vacation, ask for it. You don't have to go through this fruitcake routine.
This is the big one, the one that started the phrase, the two Darrens. On the classic show Bewitched, the entire story revolved around the relationship between Samantha the Witch and her mortal husband, Darren Stevens. Darren was the stressed-out advertising executive who just wanted a normal life. For the first 5 seasons, Darren was played by an actor named Dick York. He was amazing. He was the perfect physical comedian with a talent for bug-eyed expressions of panic. But behind the scenes, Dick York was in constant, terrible pain. Years before Bewitched, he had suffered a severe back injury while filming a movie. He never fully recovered. The long hours on set made his condition worse and worse. It got so bad that one day, during the filming of an episode in Season 5, he had a seizure on set and had to be rushed to the hospital. When he was lying in his hospital bed, he knew he couldn't continue. He quit the show right then and there. The show was a massive hit, so they couldn't just end it. They decided to do the unthinkable and recast the main male character. Starting in Season 6, a new actor named Dick Sargent stepped into the role. He looked a bit different and had a much calmer acting style. The show never once mentioned the change. One week, it was Dick York. The next, it was Dick Sargent. And the story just continued. It was a bold move that has become a legend in TV history. Recasting. A husband is one thing, but what about another important family member, like the son on a hugely popular spin-off show? The next story involves just that, and it happened twice. 5. Lionel Jefferson on The Jeffersons.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Are you sure you're okay?
Mom, I'm okay.
Thank God, that's all that matters.
I'm glad you feel that way. I just got kicked out of school.
We're moving on up to the East Side. The Jeffersons was a groundbreaking sitcom about a black family who became rich and moved into a fancy high-rise building. A key member of the family was their son, Lionel. He was smart, level-headed, and often acted as the calm center between his hot-headed dad, George, and his kind-hearted mom, Wheezy. When the show first started, Lionel was played by an actor named Mike Evans. He was the original Lionel, having played the character on the show All in the Family as well. But Mike Evans was a talented guy with big ambitions. He was also a writer, and he became one of the co-creators of another hit sitcom, Good Times. As Good Times became more and more successful, he decided to leave the Jeffersons to focus on his writing. So the producers brought in a new actor to play Lionel, a man named Damon Evans. Damon played the part for a few seasons, but then the story takes another twist. Damon Evans wanted to leave the show to pursue other projects. And guess what? Good Times had ended its run by then. So the producers went back to the original Lionel Mike Evans, and he agreed to come back. He returned to the role for the last couple of seasons. So Lionel Jefferson wasn't just replaced once, he was replaced and then replaced back. From a son to a daughter, Our next show fast-forwards to a more modern sitcom where the oldest daughter was recast after the first season, changing the family dynamic quite a bit. 6. Kristen Baxter on Last Man Standing. Jumping forward a few decades, let's talk about the hit sitcom Last Man Standing. The show stars Tim Allen as Mike Baxter, a marketing director for an outdoor sporting goods store. He lives in a house full of women, his wife and their 3 daughters. The oldest of his 3 daughters was Kristen. In the first season, Kristen was a young single mom living at home with her son. She was played by an actress named Alexandra Krosney. Alexandra played Kristen as a bit sarcastic and world-weary. But when the show came back for season 2, fans were surprised to see a new face in the role. The character was now being played by actress Amanda Fuller. Not only was the actress different, but the character herself seemed to have changed. This new Kristen was a little older and more mature. So what happened? Well, the official reason given by the network was that it was a creative decision. The show's writers wanted to take the character in a different direction. They wanted to age her up a bit and focus more on her relationship with her son's father. They felt that Amanda Fuller was a better fit for this new version of the character. It was a pretty jarring change, but audiences eventually got used to the new actress. Replacing a daughter can really shake up a family sitcom. But sometimes the reasons for the replacement are much more dramatic, which is exactly what happened with our next character. 7. Lori Foreman on That 70s Show.
When? Yes, I had the ball last time. Holy mother.
Hello, Lori.
Hello, Kelso.
Let's head down to the basement in Point Place, Wisconsin for That 70s Show. The show was a hilarious look back at teenage life centered around Eric Foreman and his group of friends. Eric also had an older sister named Lori who was a constant pain in his neck. She loved to tease her little brother and had a reputation for dating a lot of guys. She was the perfect annoying older sister, played for the first few seasons by actress Lisa Robin Kelly. But behind the scenes, Lisa Robin Kelly was facing some serious personal demons. These private struggles were making it very difficult for her to continue working on the show. For her own well-being, she had to leave the series. Her character was written out with the explanation that she had gone off to beauty school. For the show's 6th season, the writers wanted to bring Lori back full-time. Since Lisa was unable to return, they had to recast the role. They hired actress Christina Moore to take over. Christina was a talented actress, but it was a tough spot to be in. Fans were so used to Lisa's unique portrayal of Lori that it was hard for them to accept someone new. The new Lori didn't have the same chaotic energy, and the character never quite clicked with audiences in the same way. Lori's replacement was tough, but our next show features what might be the most famous and talked about sister swap in all of television history, a switch so legendary they even made fun of it on the show itself. 8. Becky Connor on Roseanne. No list of character replacements would be complete without talking about Becky Connor from Roseanne. The show was praised for its realistic portrayal of a working-class American family. The oldest daughter was Becky. In the first 5 seasons, Becky was played by an actress named Leslie Goranson. She was the perfect original Becky, a smart, sometimes rebellious teenager. Then Becky eloped with her boyfriend, Mark. Around that same time in real life, Leslie decided she wanted to go to college. She left the show to attend Vassar. For season 6, they recast the role with a new actress, Sarah Chalk. Sarah had a different, more bubbly energy. But here's where it gets really weird. Leslie decided she wanted to come back to the show. The producers liked both actresses, so they had both of them share the role. For season 8, Leslie would play Becky in some episodes, and Sarah would play her in others, depending on Leslie's school schedule. They never explained the change. One week, Becky would just look completely different. They even made jokes about it in the show, creating the legendary tale of the two Beckys. Having two actors play the same sister is wild. But our next show also featured a sister swap, and the first actress went on to become a huge star. 9. Mandy Milkovich on Shameless Heading.
You talked to Lip?
I came by last Tuesday to say hi. I didn't come inside. Liv didn't want me inside because, you know, didn't want to upset you.
Into the rough world of the South Side of Chicago, we meet the Gallagher family from the show Shameless. One of the important recurring characters in the early seasons was Mandy Milkovich. She was the tough-as-nails friend of the oldest Gallagher daughter, Fiona. In the first season, Mandy was a recurring guest star played by an actress named Jane Levy. She brought a really strong, fiery energy to the character. She was so good, in fact, that she caught the eye of other casting directors. After that first season, Jane Levy was offered the lead role in her own sitcom called Suburgatory. It was a huge opportunity she couldn't pass up, so she left. When Shameless came back for its second season, the role of Mandy was expanded and made a series regular. They cast actress Emma Greenwell, who took over the role for the next several years. Emma's version of Mandy was a bit darker and more intense. Because the first actress was only there for a handful of episodes, many fans who started watching later only ever knew Emma Greenwell as Mandy. Some sister swaps are subtle, but our next one, from a beloved family sitcom, was probably the most obvious and jarring replacement on this entire list. 10. Claire Kyle on My Wife and Kids.
Yeah?
What's different about you?
What are you talking about? I just pulled my hair back, that's all.
In the early 2000s, My Wife and Kids was a staple of family television. The show starred Damon Wayans and Tisha Campbell as Michael and Jay Kyle. One of their 3 kids was the middle child, a daughter named Claire. For the first 2 seasons, Claire was the stereotypical awkward and clumsy teenager, played by a young actress named Jazz Ray Cole. Then, at the start of season 3, viewers got a huge surprise. The role had been taken over by actress Jennifer Freeman. And this wasn't a subtle replacement. The new Claire was suddenly stylish, popular, and a lot less clumsy. The show even poked fun at the massive change. Michael Kyle looks at his new daughter and says, "I don't know what it is, but you look like a whole new person." The reason for the change was dramatic. Reports say the mother of the original actress was unhappy that a new storyline would involve Claire having a boyfriend. She reportedly pulled her daughter from the series. The producers were left with no choice but to recast the part, and they went in a completely new direction with the character. That was a huge change, but it wasn't the most famous recasting of a main family member on a beloved sitcom. For that, we have to go back to the 90s, to a story that has become the stuff of Hollywood legend. 11. Vivian Banks on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Carlton, you are not going to MacArthur Park tonight. In fact, none of you are going to MacArthur Park tonight.
Now this is a story all about how a beloved TV mom got flipped, turned upside down. On The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Will's Aunt Vivian was a central character. She was a strong, smart, and elegant college professor. For the first 3 seasons, Aunt Viv was played by the incredible Janet Hubert. She was amazing, bringing a fiery passion to the role. But as the show became a worldwide phenomenon, rumors started to swirl about tension on the set. Specifically, reports said that Janet Hubert and the show's star, Will Smith, were not getting along. Their personalities clashed, and the work environment became very difficult. By the end of the 3rd season, the situation was at a breaking point. Janet Hubert was gone. The role of Aunt Viv was now being played by actress Daphne Maxwell Reid. This was not a subtle change. Daphne Maxwell Reid had a much softer, calmer presence. Her version of Aunt Viv felt like a very different character. The show even made a joke about it. In the first episode with the new actress, Jazz looks at her and says, "You know, Mrs. Banks, since you had that baby, there's something different about you. For years, there was a lot of public drama between Will Smith and Janet Hubert. Thankfully, decades later, they finally reconciled during a reunion special. Replacing one iconic TV mom is shocking enough. But what about a show that replaced its matriarch 9 seasons into its run? Our next show did just that. 12. Harriet Winslow on Family Matters.
Oh, so now it's my fault that Ferguson's is charged with all this overtime?
Well, sir, I'm not blaming anybody for it. All I'm saying
Good,
is that...
because I'm not going to approve it.
Did I do that? No, but the producers of Family Matters sure did. This classic 90s sitcom was all about the Winslow family and their nerdy neighbor, Steve Urkel. The heart of the family was the mother, Harriet Winslow. For nearly 9 full seasons, she was played by the wonderful actress Jo Marie Payton. She was the perfect loving but no-nonsense mom, often trying to keep her husband Carl from losing his cool. But after more than 200 episodes, Jo Marie Payton was ready to move on. She had been with the character since she first appeared on the show's predecessor, Perfect Strangers. She felt her contract was up, and she simply wanted to do other things. The show, however, had been moved to a new network for its final season, and they wanted to keep going. They couldn't just get rid of the mom. So, for the last handful of episodes of the entire series, they replaced her. Actress Judy Ann Elder stepped into the role of Harriet. It was a strange situation for everyone involved. The show was already near its end, and suddenly the family matriarch had a new face. Most fans remember Jo Marie Payton as the one and only Harriet, and many don't even know a second actress played the part. From a mom to a grandma, the next recasting happened on another iconic 90s family sitcom, and the replacement actress was a legend. 13. Claire Tanner on Full House.
What are you doing here?
Just hanging around.
Everywhere you look, there's a casting change to talk about. On the wholesome family sitcom Full House, Danny Tanner's mom was an important recurring character, the grandmother to DJ, Stephanie, and Michelle. Her name was Claire Tanner, and she would pop in to help her son and her grandkids. In the very first episode, the pilot, Grandma Claire was played by an actress named Alice Herson. She did a fine job, but when the character was brought back later in the season, there was a new grandma in the house. This time, the role was played by the legendary actress Doris Roberts, who would later go on to become a huge star as the mom on Everybody Loves Raymond. The reason for the change is a little unclear. It was likely just a standard casting decision made after the pilot was filmed. Sometimes, producers decide to go in a different direction with a character once the show gets picked up for a full season. Doris Roberts brought her own special warmth and comedic timing to the part, and she's the Grandma Tanner that most fans remember from the show's early days. From a human grandma to a cartoon teenager, our next replacement involves a voice actor on one of the most popular animated shows ever. 14. Meg Griffin on Family Guy. Shut up, Meg! That's the famous catchphrase aimed at the Griffin family's awkward and unpopular teenage daughter on Family Guy. Meg is one of the show's main punching bags, but she's still a core member of the family. The voice that most of us associate with Meg is that of actress Mila Kunis, who has been playing her for over 2 decades. But here's a little secret. Mila Kunis was not the original voice of Meg. In the very first season of the show, Meg was voiced by another actress, Lacey Chabert. You might know her from movies like Mean Girls or the show Party of Five. Lacey voiced Meg for the entire first production season. So why the change? Well, Lacey Chabert left the show on her own terms. She was still in school at the time and was also working on Party of Five, and balancing all of that was just too much. The producers then held auditions for a new Meg, and a young Mila Kunis won the part. She re-recorded a little bit of dialogue for a first season episode, but her real takeover began in season 2. Her slightly different take on the character's voice has been iconic ever since. Changing a voice is one thing, but what about changing a kid actor right in the middle of a show's run? The next show did just that, and even made a joke about where the first kid went. But our next replacement is far from common. It involves a baby who grew up way too fast. 15. Lily Tucker Pritchett on Modern Family.
Maybe we should remind Uncle Crispin that when you say nice things to people, they say nice things back.
On the mega-hit sitcom Modern Family, one of the three families was headed by Cameron and Mitchell, a loving couple who adopt a baby girl from Vietnam in the very first episode. Her name was Lily. For the first 2 seasons, baby Lily was played by a pair of adorable identical twins, Ella and Jaden Hiller. They were cute babies who did what most babies do on a TV set. But as the character of Lily got older, the writers wanted her to have more to do. They wanted her to have funny lines and a real personality. The problem was, the Hiller twins were not really enjoying the experience of being on a TV set. It's a loud, busy place, and they were ready to just be kids. So, for season 3, the show made a change. They held auditions and cast a new, slightly older actress named Aubrey Anderson Emmons. Aubrey was a natural. She was sassy, hilarious, and had perfect comedic timing. She completely transformed Lily from a quiet baby into one of the show's funniest characters. It was a change that helped the show grow and gave fans a brand new character to love. From a baby to a teenager's girlfriend, our next show made the replacement a running joke. 16. Ann Veal on Arrested Development.
Ann? Oh, thank God you're all right.
Mr. Bluth?
Ann? Oh, thank God you're all right.
Arrested Development is a show famous for its clever running gags, and one of its best gags was the character of Ann Veal. She was the very religious and extremely plain girlfriend of George Michael Bluth. The joke was that the main character, Michael, could never remember who she was. He was always asking, "Her?" To make the joke even funnier, the show actually cast 2 different actresses to play Anne. In her very first appearance, she was played by actress Alessandra Torresani. But after that one episode, the part was recast. For the rest of the show's run, Anne was played by Mae Whitman. The producers have said that the recasting was part of the joke. They wanted Anne to be so forgettable that they could swap out the actress without anyone noticing. Mae Whitman was so perfect at playing the bland and awkward Anne that she made the character unforgettable in her own way. The "her" joke became one of the most beloved parts of the show, all thanks to a sneaky casting change. Our next show also swapped out a girlfriend, but for a much more straightforward reason. 17. Jackie Geary on The Goldbergs.
You're gonna pass on a trip to Disneyland?
Oh, boss!
I love you now!
The Goldbergs is a sitcom set in the 1980s, based on the real life of its creator, Adam F. Goldberg. In the show, young Adam has a longtime girlfriend named Jackie. For several seasons, Jackie was played by actress Rowan Blanchard. For part of that time, her character adopted a new look based on the movie Some Kind of Wonderful, but it was still the same actress. But then, at the start of season 6, Jackie showed up and was played by a new actress, Alexis G. Zoll. The show, in its typical funny and self-aware style, made a joke about the change right away. A character mentions that Jackie looks different, and she replies that she just got a new haircut. The real reason for the change was simple. The original actress, Rowan Blanchard, was a rising star and decided to leave the show to focus on other projects and opportunities. It was a friendly departure. The writers still wanted the character of Jackie to be part of the story, so they hired Alexa Zoll to take over the part for the character's final appearances. Replacing a girlfriend is one thing, but what about a mom? On the next show, they recast Pam's mom, and it created a weird timeline problem. 18. Helene Beasley on The Office. On the American version of The Office, we got to know the family of the receptionist turned artist, Pam Beasley. We met her mom, Helene, a few times over the course of the show. She first appears in Season 2 for a very brief visit to the office. In that episode, she was played by actress Shannon Cochran. She was a sweet, typical mom, but then, years later, in Season 6, the show introduced a major storyline where Pam's mom starts dating Michael Scott. It was a huge, hilariously awkward part of the season. When Helene came back for this big storyline, she was played by a different actress, Linda Pearl. The change was pretty noticeable, as the two actresses don't look very much alike. The show never explained it, and fans were left to wonder why the swap was made. The most likely reason is that for such a big storyline, the producers wanted a more well-known character actress like Linda Pearl to take on the role. It was a simple recasting that most people just accepted. From Pam's mom to Amy's mom, our next show brought in a Hollywood superstar to replace a character's parent. 19. Mrs. Fowler on The Big Bang Theory.
That is no way to speak to your mother.
Perhaps not. But it is a way to speak to a woman who quoted the Bible to me my whole life and then desecrates one of Ethan Allen's finest sofas.
On The Big Bang Theory, when Sheldon's girlfriend, Amy Farrah Fowler, was first introduced, we heard a lot about her intimidating and overbearing mother. For a long time, we only heard her voice, shouted from off-screen. But eventually, we got to meet her in person via a video call. In that first on-screen appearance in Season 5, Mrs. Fowler was played by the character actress Annie O'Donnell. She played the part perfectly as a stern and controlling mother. It seemed like that would be the one and only time we saw her face. But then, years later, in the show's 11th season, there was a big storyline involving Sheldon and Amy's wedding. The writers decided to bring Amy's parents back in a big way. And for this major event, they decided to recast the role of her mother. And they went big. They hired the Oscar-winning superstar actress Kathy Bates to play Mrs. Fowler. Kathy Bates brought her incredible talent and star power to the role, creating a memorable new version of the character for the show's final seasons. Hiring a big star is a great reason to recast, but what about a show where a character was replaced 3 times? 20. Allison Stark on Till Death. The sitcom Till Death, starring Brad Garrett from Everybody Loves Raymond, was about 2 married couples, one older and one younger. One of the main characters was Allison, the daughter of the main couple who was married to the younger husband. This character had a wild ride. When the show started, Allison was played by actress Kristen Ritter, who you might know from the show Jessica Jones. She played the part for the first 2 seasons, but then, for reasons that aren't totally clear, she left the show. For Season 3, the part was taken over by actress Laura Clary. But get this, she only lasted for a handful of episodes before the writers decided to completely change the show's direction. For Season 4, they wrote the Allison character out and then brought her back later, played by a third actress, Kate McCucci. Each actress brought a totally different vibe to the part, making it one of the most frequently recast main characters in recent memory. Our next show swapped out a stepmom on a classic 80s sitcom. 21. Maggie Drummond on Different Strokes. What you talking about, Willis? The classic 80s show Different Strokes was about 2 young brothers from Harlem who are taken in by a rich white widower named Philip Drummond. For the first few seasons, it was just Mr. Drummond and the kids. But eventually, he fell in love and got married to a woman named Maggie. When Maggie was first introduced, she was played by actress Dixie Carter. She was a great fit for the show, but she only stuck around for 1 season. She eventually left to star in her own hit sitcom, Designing Women. The show still wanted the dad to have a wife, so they brought the character back a season later. This time, Maggie was played by a new actress, Mary Ann Mobley. She played the part for the rest of the show's run. Because there was a full season gap between the 2 actresses, the change wasn't as jarring as some of the others on our list. Finally, we have one last classic sitcom, where the youngest son was quietly replaced after the very first season. 22. Chris Partridge on The Partridge Family.
Why are you the only one that does that? It's because I'm the drummer. I didn't know he played the drums with that part of him.
He doesn't. It only sounds like it.
I bounce up and down a lot.
Let's hop in our groovy painted bus and travel back to the 70s. The Partridge Family was a massive hit about a widow and her 5 kids who form a rock band. The family included teen heartthrob Keith, Lori, Danny, Tracy, and the youngest boy, Chris, who played the drums. During the very first season, the role of Chris Partridge was played by a young actor named Jeremy Gelb-Wax. He was part of the cast for that first year, but truth be told, things weren't going so well behind the scenes. Reports from back then say that Jeremy's home life was a bit chaotic. His family moved around a lot, and he apparently didn't get along super well with the other kid actors on set. So, when his family had to move again, the producers decided it was a good time to make a change. When season 2 started, a new actor was sitting behind the drum kit. His name was Brian Forster, and he looked similar enough that many people at home didn't even question it. Brian played Chris for the rest of the show's run, and he is the version of the character most people remember. It was a smooth and quiet swap that kept the family band from missing a beat.